Hello, this is Red Jerry from Who's Tunes. You're listening to the Liverpool Connection Podcast.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Liverpool Connection Podcast. I'm your host Daz. This is my football and music episode where I bring on a musician to talk about football and music. And I'm going for two in a row this time because lately I've been having a musician on and they haven't supported Liverpool. I mean, that's okay because that's their story, but it's even better when you get somebody who's a Liverpool supporter as well, because we can enjoy this beautiful football team at the moment and we can just all fucking laugh at Arsenal and cities of this world. But my next guest is a DJ producer and audio engineer, label boss of Emergent Properties. He's an absolute legend in my book. He's been on John Digweed's Bedrock label, which, if anyone knows progressive house or melodic techno, is the highest of the highest. He's worked with Sasha on his album Scene Delete, and also worked with Tom, JunkieXL, which is another legend in the scene. But I welcome Paul James Nolan to the pod. Hiya, mate.
Hello, mate. Thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure.
Sorry I didn't have fireworks to go for that intro.
Right, no, I was just cringing. In the background as you laid the praise on top of me. Don't worry.
We're cheap here at the Liverpool Connection Podcast. We can't afford fireworks, so I build you up in an intro.
Well, you know what, mate? I'll take whatever's going at that rate. Don't worry.
So, do you want to talk footy first or music?
Oh, footy.
There we go. All right. Well, obviously, massive Liverpool supporter. Let's go back. When was you, really into football? Because I know, when you're kind of younger, like I went when I was 6 with my granddad. I didn't really I'd be looking more at the people in the stand than I would on the pitch.
Yeah.
So I didn't really understand, what football was about. I just knew that I could have a bit of a shandy when I was younger at the pub with my granddad. How was it for you?
Yeah, it was interesting because it was always very difficult in the heyday of the 80s to get tickets. So I was one of those obsessed kids who got to probably the age of about 8 or 9 and never got to go to a game. So when it finally happened, it was New Year's Day. I can't remember the exact year. It might have been 89 or something like that, 88 or 89, something like that. And we played Leeds United at home. And we absolutely stuffed them 4-0. It was absolutely brilliant. And that was an amazing moment because basically what it was is that my uncle at the time couldn't go to the game because basically he was too plastered because he was out on New Year's Eve. So he gave his season tickets to my dad, and he managed to escape the hangover enough to actually take me to the game. And I just remember it was we were a bit late getting in, but it was back in the days when it's you had to almost not walk. It wasn't obviously walking through the tunnel, but you walk through and you were at pitch level, in the lower Kenny. And it was literally walk. And basically the steward had to stop me from basically walking onto the pitch because I was so transfixed because John Barnes was playing and he was my hero growing up. And, all the legends like Beardsley and Rush and, just that incredible team, around that time. And that really that sealed it all because, as I said, it was always very difficult and, not always possible for me to actually get to games. So I was a massive fan of watching them on TV. And obviously it was back in the 80s. So the games were on free TV. So it was easier to watch and stuff like that. And it was that was, from a very, very young age, probably from about the age of 4. I think my allegiances rested on the result of the replay of the League Cup final in 1984 when we had to play the replay. I think it was at Main Road, and I think it was Graham Souness who scored the winner, absolute screamer. And that set it in motion then, do you know what I mean? Because as you know, Daz, in a lot of family households in Liverpool back in the day, it was you get to a certain age and you just get given the choice. It's red or blue. It's your choice to make. I was given the free choice, and thankfully I chose the right side.
Yeah, not for me. That's a rugby fan. So he just didn't understand football. He was just like, football's for puffs. Yeah, even though like I played it, like, he would just always just go, he's got a broken leg, like, so what? Like, it's like, Dad, come on, He was just hardcore rugby supporter, but it was my granddad who took me under his wing and was like, you're going to be a Liverpool supporter. I don't care. But, I mean, I've got cousins that are Blues, and, they just live a really non-existent life. Having I always chuckle, the bitterness, but I have a good rapport with them, and I go home, I'm always like having a good go at them. But yeah, I mean, it's the greatest feeling in the world to go to Anfield. It's a privilege for me still.
Yeah. Same.
It's hard. It's quite easy to explain, like, when I'm over here in America and, people ask me like how Anfield is, and it's not a feeling, it's a smell for me. I smell the grass, and obviously during the 70s and 80s, you smelled the piss. That's just the way it was in the stands, especially in the Kop. But for you to explain, like, do you still get goosebumps, like, walking up the steps and everything?
Oh, God, yeah, every time. Absolutely every time. And something that developed in recent years for me is that I literally, since 2017, when my dad died, I can't go to a game and get through You'll Never Walk Alone without tearing up. I mean, I'm tearing up now just thinking about it. Like, I struggle to get through it because all I do in that moment is think of him, and I think of all the times I've been in the game with him and all the games I watched with him at home. And the last game that I ever got to see with him, which was literally like 5 days before he died, was us absolutely walloping Everton. I think it was 5-1 in a derby. That was just one of the most amazing abiding memories, because it was an unexpected passing, basically. So it was just the way things sort of laid out. So that's what comes for me when every time I go to Anfield and that song starts. It's deeply personal.
Well, it's when I obviously, again, I'm in America, but I used to be a season ticket holder, and kind of the same thing is, like, you just notice all the people around you. One goes 1 year, passes away, then another, and it really does hit you because on mates, I mean, not like, go round their house and all that, or, telephone each other, but match days, you talk about your lives before kickoff, and, it's just sad to see, especially the people I used to go the match with, aren't there anymore.
Yeah, I can understand that. It speaks not just Liverpool, but also, football clubs, and also, in the other part of our lives on the music side, nightclubs and stuff like that, because I was obviously, like, deeply involved at Cream back in the day, and you got the same thing of, like, people would come and then people would get ill, or, certain people, like, suddenly pass away and you can't believe it. And it's like, it speaks to these institutions as deeply important sort of cultural monoliths, where it's like, you think about the amount of humanity that's happened at Anfield since 1892 and the generations that it's been handed down to. Like, it's hard not to get emotional about it, because that's really when they talk about, all these catchphrases like, Barcelona, Mesque un club, do you know what I mean? And, we've in recent years, Liverpool, this means more. Like, every club's got that to an extent. So it's that element of, the generations, like, holding this up as, like, an eternal symbol of what it means to come from that part of the world. That's why it does matter, but it doesn't matter to the extent that I think some people think of who owns these clubs, as long as they're good custodians, like we've been very lucky to have in recent years. I don't care what anybody else says about them. I think they've been fantastic owners. It also gives that symbol meaning at the end of the day.
I agree. It's just, that whole thing where you say, like, football's life or death. When you're a teenager, it is. When you loses, you're fucking so upset for, like, weeks. Now, the importance of family for me comes first. And they can switch me off that watching the telly very quickly, because it's like, Dad, I need my arse wiped, or Dad, I need this done. Dad, I need this. So that anger of like losing just goes away very quickly. Like I used to want to throw fucking me telly out the window, smash shit up. I mean, I got into some scraps when I was younger, and it's not like that anymore. I still have passion, but I don't want to go out and like fucking jump over my neighbour's fence and like kick the living shit out of him because my team lost. You know how it is. You just get older.
Of course, yeah.
But still, though, your heart and soul is Liverpool Football Club, and especially with the music side too. And I've asked this of quite a few people. Like, if you have a gig, you'll know when Liverpool played and what gig you played goes hand in hand, right? Use it, or you can tell, like, all right, I used to listen to this tune in '86, and that's when Liverpool won this cup. It's all intertwined, and I love that, and I think it helps our memories just kind of go, all right, yeah, music, football, I get it. Like, this happened. What's your, like, for you? I mean, obviously you've seen loads of Liverpool matches. What's one of your like favourites that stands out for you?
In terms of matches? Yeah, I mean, it's going to be quite a rote answer, but it's, for me, this goes on top of even the Istanbul. For me, it's the Barcelona 4-0 at Anfield, the second leg in 2019. That is absolutely the greatest, and I wasn't there, I watched it at home, but that is still for me the greatest footballing experience that I've ever had in any situation. And there's a little bit of context to that, because I was very, very lucky over those years that I actually became pretty friendly with Peter Moore, the high guy who was the CEO of Liverpool at the time. And how that came about was that I'm really into like looking after myself and, fitness and martial arts and everything else. I've been really into hot yoga for a long time. Like, I'm literally going to finish this podcast and I'm going to go and do a 90-minute hot yoga class down the road here. Peter's wife was my yoga teacher. And lovely woman, American, fantastic. Hello, Debbie and Peter, if you're listening. And I remember we did a class together on the morning of that game. And I turned around to Peter and I went, squeaky bum time, is it? And honestly, he turned around to me, Daz, and he went, and he looked at me dead stone cold, and he went, no, we're doing it. And I went, like, how are the players feeling? And he went, everybody down to Kathy in the canteen knows we're winning tonight. There's just absolutely no other, like, he was so certain about it. And it was really interesting because it was an example of, like, people like to talk about FSG and talk about ownership, but they've got a winning culture from top to bottom. And, they're the guys who brought Jurgen in. He's the one who brought that structure and winning coaching and everything else. But they're the ones who set the tone. Right from the very top of the boardroom all the way down to the canteen. And it instilled a lot of actually, I think we might have a chance here, just because he was so certain about it. And then, of course, it unfolded the way it did. And like I said before to you, when, I said I can barely get through You'll Never Walk Alone without crying. I cannot to this day watch highlights of that game without bursting into tears, because it's still... you know, when you hear those words, corner taken quickly, Origi, it still absolutely, A, takes me by surprise, and B, absolutely emotionally ruins me. So I know it's an iconic game and everything else, but that's the one for me, because that was the turning point for me, from us being good and challenging and obviously getting to the Champions League final the year before and starting to challenge City. That was the big hurdle. And I'll tell you something, that night, once the final whistle went, I'll be honest with you, I didn't really care who we got in the final, whether it was Spurs or Ajax, because I knew we were going to win. Like, when you have a result like that, you have to go on and win it, and there was just no doubt in my mind after that.
Well, I mean, the first leg, the 3-0 flattered Barca, because
big time.
We had chances as well, you know, and it was a messy masterclass. But I think when Barca came to Anfield, they didn't, you know, I didn't think they took in the 12th man, which is support. I knew we would win. Did I think we would win 4-0? Not a chance. And I've had Peter on. Peter used to live in Austin, and I've also had Steve Hunter, you know, commentating.
Yeah.
Coined the corner taken quickly, and I think, you know, I was in a pub watching it. This is right before I was coming back home as well, and I just went apeshit. I've just never. I mean, and we didn't have Mo, we didn't have Bobby, you know, and obviously it was Robbo that got hurt, so that's why Genie came on. So it was kind of fate, and I think Genie had a point to prove, but it was just the will of the cop, just, you know, pulling the Liverpool players into for that goal.
Yeah, absolutely was.
I've never seen anything like it in my entire life. You know, I was too young for Saint Etienne. You know, my granddad told me all about that. You know, but we've had, you know, Dortmund come to town. That was a fantastic match, but it wasn't on the level. This is Barcelona we were playing, and that's Messi, Suarez, Coutinho. Just the list goes on and on. You
Busquets,
know, the Barcelona greats, and we turned them over. But I think the biggest thing was we weren't going to let them like get one over on us. We're like, you're in our house now. I mean, Robbo shoving Messi on the head. He even said later on. Like,
I've got something to say about that, because you know where I live now. I live in Buenos Aires, right? I live in Argentina, and everything in terms of like the deifying of Messi and Maradona, as you can imagine, is absolutely true. And I drive all of my Argentinian friends up the fucking wall. You know why? Because obviously it's like, Messi, the greatest of all time, this, that, and the other. And I'm like, he never won at Anfield, so he's not.
Andy Robbo.
Exactly. Exactly. All right.
Who would dare, you know, that one of the world's greatest players, who would dare to like shove him in the back of the head?
I mean, who would dare to... Exactly. And we've just had the next generational equivalent of that last week with, you know, Conor Bradley turning Mbappe into that fucking breakdancer from the Olympics. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's that kind of equivalent, that lack of like, complete lack of respect. You know, it's like what Ron Atkinson, remember when Ron Atkinson used to commentate, you know, back in the day, he used to call it the reducer. Do you know what I mean? It's that thing of like, I'm here, I'm on to you, I don't give a shit who you are. Basically, you're on the same level as everyone else. And it's really funny because, you know, after Robbo did that in that game, you hardly saw a peep out of them for the rest of the game.
Yeah, it changed the game. It really did. Like, I mean, you saw Suarez, I think it was on the like second goal that we scored, just shaking his head.
Yeah.
Just go, oh shit.
Did you ever see the documentary? And they actually had cameras inside the Barcelona, and it was Jordi Alba. It was at half time. He was in the corner crying. because he knew it was up. The game was up, and it was only half time, and it was only 1-0, and they could feel it, and you could see them collectively looking at each other, going, "What are we going to do here, lads? Because we're done for." Like,
yeah, every player that was on that pitch, like the Liverpool, put in a shift, and it probably the greatest night at Anfield we've had in a long time, apart from beating Real Madrid, this 2-0. Just like they'll all say, well, it wasn't the Real Madrid from 3 years ago.
Oh, mate, don't start me.
Yeah, I'm just like, that's Real Madrid. I don't care who you, Ancelotti puts out a team that can still beat most teams, so don't even come at me with that crap.
No, it's ridiculous.
Barca, and that's pretty much everybody's answer is Barca. And they knew exactly where they were, either at Anfield or, at home. But yeah, it's just...
Yeah. I mean, there's a few others, obviously. The one that immediately springs to mind is the first Newcastle 4-3.
Yeah.
That was just a wild game because, at that point, for maybe people who haven't got long memories like I have or we have, or, younger people listening, at that point, Newcastle were a better team than us.
Yeah, they were.
They were objectively a better team. I mean, think about that team. They had Asprilla, Ginola, Philippe Albert, Pavel Srnicek in goal. Like, cracking team. Warren Barr, all phenomenal players, amazing. And, that went down as a Premier League classic. Do you know what I mean? That was a fantastic. And then just going back to the Barca thing as well, I think the reason why the likes of the Dortmund game you mentioned, Barcelona, even Real Madrid last week, for fans of our age, that you're a bit older than me, but I grew up. I was born in 1980, so by the time I was old enough to understand football, I'll be honest with you, Heysel had already happened, and we'd already been banned from Europe. So when we finally made it back to Europe, when I was a bit older and I could understand it a bit more, it was made all the more special because, through various things that are not to be gotten into today, we lost all those years of potentially competing for European Cups. So that's why, winning it in 2005 in Istanbul means more to us. Again, obviously winning it in 2019. And, I think that's why we feel the losses a lot more as well, because, we had a whole period of our history kind of missing because, it's one of the great talking points, isn't it? What would that 87, 88 team of Barnes, Beardsley, Aldridge, McMahon, Nicol, Grobbelaar, Hansen, what would that have team done in Europe? And, you could speculate and say we would have steamrolled everyone and we were probably the best team in Europe at that time, but we'll never know.
That's the thing. So that's why I don't take the winning as again, I'm a 70s kid, so I enjoyed a lot of cups. My granddad took me to a lot of League Cups and FA Cups, and I never took it for granted. But as you alluded to before, when I knew we had Spurs in the final, I was like, we're not losing this. It was just, and even though their match against Ajax was brilliant, the way they came back as well, and I'm sure Spurs fans will probably tell you we're not losing to Liverpool after beating Ajax, but I just knew I was just especially after we'd lost the league. I was like, we're winning this.
Yeah, and there's levels, and I say this as somebody who has in his very, very close friend group, I've got quite a few Spurs supporters. It's really, really funny because I remember that time, and I said to all my Spurs supporting friends, I'm like, you've got no concept of what's about to happen to you. And all my Spurs supporting friends and quite a few other people who I knew supported Spurs were like, oh yeah, we're going to go to Madrid. This is going to be like a Premier League game. And I'm like, you have no earthly concept of what you're about to see. And I'm getting phone calls on the day of the game going, Paul, you were right, we're outnumbered 25-1. And I'm like, welcome to Liverpool at a European Cup final, bitch. And they said they got into the stadium, and I'm getting more texts. How did you lot get so many tickets? We're outnumbered 10-1 in the stadium. And I'm like, because it's us, and we don't take no for an answer. You know, they really like got a big culture shock that day. And it's really interesting, actually, because I don't know whether you saw this recently, but you know Hugo Lloris, who was in goal for Spurs that day, he actually has written a book, and there was an excerpt of it in The Guardian. And it was really, really interesting because he actually said the night before the game, I think, or it was afterwards, Daniel Levy gave them all watches. And it was like, you know, Champions League finalist 2019. And he was like, that's when I knew this club was absolutely screwed, because it's like, who does that? Like, what is it? Like, oh, it's a nice, expensive watch, but it's a participation trophy. I mean, what do teams who lose Champions League finals do when they get the runners-up medals? They normally lash them in the bin. Do you know what I mean? In some cases, Mourinho lashes his winners' medals in the bin because he's done with the club that he's at. So it was a combination of knowing what we're like on the big occasion and the way our fan base absolutely brings it. And at the same time, knowing that, you know, Spurs, Spursy as anything, like, they're never going to, you know, they haven't got they never had the mentality. And you look at what happened to Pochettino and that Spurs team afterwards, it just absolutely disintegrated after that game. And, you know, it was always going to be that case, you know, and that's why actually, when you watch that game back, it's a thoroughly unspectacular, very routine 2-0 win that you would have been mistaken if it hadn't been getting played in Atletico Madrid Stadium. It just looked like a normal run-of-the-mill Premier League game on the pitch. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, I'm glad we got the penalty. Don't get me wrong, but it just set the tone for the match. You know, I think you already knew once that went in, that's it. You know, Spurs would probably get a few chances and that's it. But yeah, I went down the pub, I just was very positive. I just knew, I told all my mates beforehand, I was like, we ain't losing to these lot, not a chance. But
Isn't it funny?
It's the cattle for us to win the league because the next season, because I just think we just needed to win a trophy and then kick on.
We needed to get one on the board. And it's funny you mentioned that, you know, about vibes. So I'm like a bit of I wouldn't say psychic when it comes to this, but I'm always good with vibes. So what stands out to me, there's two of them that really stand out to me, or there's a few of them actually on both sides of the equation. So 2019, I knew we were winning. 2007, I woke up the morning of that final and went, nah, not feeling it. Just there's something in the air, don't know, it just feels a bit like, because I was living in Liverpool back then, and it's like there's just something in the air, it's not quite sitting right for me, like just I don't know. And then you started to hear all like the issues that people are getting in the ground and everything else, and it's like it doesn't feel quite right. And then the game's near and bitty, and then we lose, and you know, didn't put Crouch on early enough, and you know, all this stuff. And then the other one was Paris the other year. Like, just literally woke up morning of the game again and went, nah, not feeling it. And then there was all the trouble in Paris with getting into the stadium and everything that happened. So yeah, it's funny that like sometimes you just get a gut feeling, don't you, on the morning of a big final like that, as to whether or not it's going to go that way, you know.
Well, I'll ask your gut feeling on this season then. Hopefully it's a good one. But I do want to talk to you about Klopp. You know, he gave us probably the best 9 years we've had in a very long time.
Oh my God, yeah.
And it's, again, it's more than football. I'll say it over and over again. He got the city, he got the people. And I think, you know, that's why he's very Shankly-esque, because Shankly did the same. He understood, you know, Scousers, he understood, you know, where we were coming from. What's your thoughts on Klopp? Because, you know, obviously the dreaded January interview took us all by surprise. You know, you can see the massive difference now in his face. He looks so well rested. You know, he's got some sun on his face, but he looks 10 years younger.
Mm. Yeah, it does. And it shows you the strain that elite level coaching and management can put on you. And I think it's quite interesting, just as a slight aside, is to watch the condition of Pep Guardiola right now. You know, in terms of like, he's actually at the point of like self-harm because of the pressure and the fact that, you know, it's all falling down around him and everything else. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, objectively speaking, like without bringing, you know, any sort of club loyalties into it, it shows you just how much pressure that level of elite competition brings, especially now because we live in an era of coaches and systems. Whereas, you know, in the past, it was always an era of players, wasn't it? And, you know, individual skill that won games and, you know, moments of genius. It's now tactical approaches and systems and how well drilled players are and everything else. So, obviously, you know, Klopp was absolutely just an iconic appointment. And, you know, the way to think about it for me was, I mean, where would we be without him? Like, it's a scary thought to think. I mean, especially the way this season's going. But I remember at the time I was living in Los Angeles when we appointed him. And I said to a lot of people, like, this is going to be the most important appointment since Shankly. And it was hilarious because it shows you how downtrodden most fans were. Is that most of my friends and a lot of Liverpool fans I said that to were just like, oh, shut up, calm down. Do you know what I mean? And it proved to be because, you know, the man literally put not just the club, he put the city on his back. And no wonder he looked so exhausted at the end, because he literally took it on himself to carry us all on his back, to show us what was possible again, to get us to, you know, the classic from doubters to believers, to actually get us to believe in ourselves again and to instill that winning culture again and almost like help us remember who we were and what we were all about. So, you know, the level of gratitude I've got for him is absolutely off the scale, because, you know, what he's done for our cultural institution, as we were just talking about before, what he's done for the city, what he's done for the people. Actually, I would go far as saying he's done something for the city that goes beyond football. It goes beyond red and blue. There's a reason why they made him, you know, they gave him the freedom of the city. Do you know what I mean? And he'll eternally always have that connection to the club and the city itself. So, you know, it's remarkable. The legacy of what he set up is what we're seeing right now with Slot, with the new coach, and just how well. And it's not just Klopp, you know, it's everyone involved. It's FSG, it's the structure that they've made. You know, everyone was fully expecting us to absolutely die on our arses the way United did. But the cleverness of the situation was we actually never built the entire club round Klopp. There was always a structure around it. You know, when you think about people like Michael Edwards, Julian Ward, again, Mike Gordon, again, Peter Moore, who we mentioned before. You know, it was always, you know, we're building a structure around Jurgen and we're going to make the most of him while he's here. And as soon as he's decided that he's had enough and he can take us as far as possible, then we need to create a structure where actually the wheels don't fall off the wagon when somebody else comes in. And if we identify the right person and we bring him in fact, we can kick on from there. And that's exactly what's happened. And that's why I think there's that almost like boot room-esque continuity in a way, even though it's a very different construct now and the way football's coached is completely different. But that's why I think you're getting a lot of the comparisons now between Klopp and Slot and Shankly and Paisley, because it is reminiscent of that. Because, you know, obviously Shankly galvanised us into what we were at the time and helped us understand the identity, and then Paisley just went on and carried that legacy on, and we just obviously, you know, tore everyone apart for the best part of 10-15 years while he was in charge. Hopefully the same thing's going to happen, you know. But yeah, when you think about him, built the statue, Put it on the other side of the stadium, next to next to one of the ones at Shankly and everything else.
I think it'll come. I really do. It might take a few years, but I just you look at us and you look at Man United. How Fergie left United in the pile of shit, and they've gone through manager after manager. Their infrastructure from top to bottom is just garbage. While Klopp left, the team in a good position where Slot didn't really need to bring in too many people. Supermende obviously was number one target, and he chose not to come because he likes hills. I guess that's it. I mean, there's a few hills in Liverpool, isn't there? There's got to be.
Mossley Hill.
Maybe the sun doesn't shine on it 24/7, but I understood why he didn't want to come. But I just think we only needed a few tweaks. And again, I think football's put into two different categories for me. Some people like winning the transfer window rather than football games, and I don't understand it. Like Slot said when he first came in, he needs to evaluate the squad. And I'm sure once he got the squad, was like, a fucking good squad. Don't really need to, if I tweak it too much, it could burst the bubble. And, loads of people, as you get on Twitter, very toxic. Oh, fuck this, fuck that, fuck FSG, fucking blah, blah, blah. I don't understand it. Like you said, FSG were the ones to appoint Klopp. They're the ones that brought Edwards in. And then now you'll have people going, what the fuck is Richard Hughes doing? I do agree that the contracts should have been probably looked at a year ago. But, it's a fine line. We as football fans, we have no idea what's going on behind doors. Are the agents telling Mo to say this shit? Or, I'm sure there's negotiations. I know there is. It's got to be. You're not going to let three of your best players just all walk out that door at the same time. But I think you've got to applaud FSG. I don't care who you are. You've got to applaud them for what they've done. They've put us back on that pedestal again, and they're the ones that write the checks. They're the ones, and they've added twice now to Anfield. I don't want to be called and this is what usually happens. You talk about FSG in a very positive light. You're a fucking FSG fanboy. I could say to all of you, go do one. I support Liverpool Football Club first. I don't support owners, but I appreciate what they've done. I get a bit pissed off when you start slagging them off a little bit just because they haven't bought your shiny new toy.
That's the thing that gets me, is that, a lot of things that you see online, and I try and stay away from that as much as possible. I don't really consume a lot of that stuff, from anyone really, to be honest with you. There's very, very select things that I watch and listen to, and that's about it. But you do see a lot of it online, and it's classic entitlement. It's classic, you want your cake and eat it. So the funny thing is, the same people who will bleat on about the fact that we didn't drop 120 million on Jude Bellingham will then, at the same breath, turn round and say, oh, isn't it wonderful that we got Curtis Jones through the academy and we never had to pay a penny for him? You can't have it both ways. You can't praise the net spend on the one hand, and then because it's not going the way that you want, or we lose a couple of games, it's because we haven't thrown money at the situation. One thing that FSG and Liverpool over the years have really proven is that solutions are actually mostly not found in the bottom of a checkbook. And quite frankly, if they were, City wouldn't be in the state they're in now, because that's what happens when you get player recruitment wrong. And we've been incredibly savvy about, who's coming in and at what kind of price. It's still incredible to me to this day. We spent £8 million on Andy Robertson. And do you remember when we signed him, everyone was like, who's this fucking dickhead from a relegated team? Why are we signing someone from fucking Hull? And it's like, give it 6 months. Oh, look, we've just actually helped create the best left back in world football, undoubtedly for me, for that time period. And he's still right up there for me to this day, even though he's had a little wobble this season. But I think that's mostly to do with him adjusting to a change in the system, the fact that he has to play a bit narrower than he was used to. So, yeah, it's amazing to me that you objectively look, and you mentioned it before, you look at Anfield, the state of it, when they took over in 2010. Look at it now. Objectively, they've been excellent custodians of the club. And despite the fact that they have made a few mistakes here and there, the 77 quid ticket and, calling fans consumers and customers in certain presentations and, got themselves wrapped up in all the Super League nonsense, which is also ironic considering the fact that we basically got the Super League this season in the new Champions League format. So that shows that whole thing was a nonsense as well. Outside of that, they've played a blinder. I mean, the one thing I always point to in transfers is when Arsenal tried to trigger the Luis Suarez release clause, the 45 million and £1. And basically, they really should have, said to Arsenal, yeah, we've activated the clause. And John Henry admitted later on, he went, didn't give a shit. Said, no, you're not having them. The end, basically. And that shows you the acumen of them, do you know what I mean? And if you understand anything about American sports and, you watch movies like Moneyball, for example, you just see how shrewd these people are because, Billy Beane was involved in the club at one stage and, Redbird Capital and everything else. They're incredibly intelligent people. Do I agree with everything they do? No. Am I happy to criticise them when they get stuff wrong? Absolutely. But at the same time, you've got to give them praise when they get it right. They get far much more right than wrong for me.
Yeah, I mean, same here. When they do all some shit like trying to trademark Liverpool, it's just like, what are you doing?
You've just got to laugh at it, haven't you? Do you know what I mean?
But I mean, they did turn around very quickly and go, look, I made a mistake. And yes, you did make us look like a right divvy trying to trademark a fucking name of a city. But, they have made mistakes and I'll call them out for it. But, put them on a scale and it's more positive than negative.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, 100%.
I also think, people will have a go. We bought McAllister. I still think we owe Brighton money. I really do. We should go back and give him another 50. But people moan about that. The price we paid. See, that's the thing. They think if you're only a £38 million player, you can't be as good as Ken Sado, who's 110 million. Well, I'll tell you what, I'd rather watch Maka every day of the week than I would.
Yeah, and how many World Cups has McAllister got compared to Casiado? I'm still convinced that actually what happened was because we knew what Chelsea's new ownership was like. I'm convinced we were screwing with Chelsea to try and get them in trouble on FFP. To be honest with you, I have this feeling that the whole thing was a diversion to actually get them because they were just hoovering up players at that point. I actually think it was a diversion to try and get them to take a couple of players that we were actually only really nominally interested in so we could actually get the players that we were fully interested in for the right kind of money, because Chelsea were just entering into bidding wars for everyone at that moment and it was distorting the market, and that's what they were deliberately trying to do. So if you look at it from that sort of more tactical perspective, I actually think it was pretty genius what the club did. And everyone's talking about Richard Hughes and Edwards being back, but a lot of those new midfield signings like Szoboszlai and McAllister and Gravenberch, they were actually Jörg Schmachter signings, and Klopp brought him in. So you've got to give him a lot of credit as well. I mean, you could argue Darwin's probably not a Michael Edwards signing, but he's put a shift in, and he frustrates me, but he's contributed. But you've got to hand the praise out equally for when everyone's got it right.
Well, I mean, talking about Núñez, I love the man. I really do. Just because he wears his heart on his sleeve. I mean, you just watch that City game. As soon as he came on, he's just so chaotic. Defenders don't know what to do. And he created that basically the penalty for Diaz just by worrying the other Diaz to make a mistake. I think that the problem is with like Núñez is he came at the same time as Haaland and his price tag. It's not his fault his price tag was 85 mil.
No.
I mean, he was banging in goals for Benfica.
And he looked $1 million against us in the Champions League when we played against him as well.
He was also playing on the wing as well. I mean, Klopp had him all over the place. I think with Slot, like, I still think the lad needs time. He's still young, still a bit immature around the edges. And I just think sometimes, like, when he needs to think,
that's the problem.
His instinct and he just belts it. It goes in.
In his worst moments, I'll be honest with you, I make a fairly unkind comparison, which I compared him to Djibril Cissé. And what I mean by that is it's not the style of play or anything else. It's like, I always remember what Benitez said about him. Because if you remember when Benitez took charge, the first thing he tried to do was cancel the Cissé transfer, and he was told, like, nah, he's coming, it's already done. And he said Cissé was the single most difficult player to coach because he said he was fundamentally uncoachable. You'd say, like, you'd coach him on the training field all week and he'd go through the movements and what he should be doing and yes, boss, and get that and everything else. And he said as soon as the game started and he walked across the white line onto the pitch, he forgot it all and just ran around like his head was on fire. So, you know, there are certain players that just, like, apparently from what I'd read into Darwin was that the guy would get so unbelievably, like, sickeningly nervous before games. So, you know, his head's gone before he's got on the pitch. So that's what happens. Like, that's why he's chaotic, because he's just running around doing stuff to try and influence the game. And like you say, he does things like, you know, the goal he scored earlier this season when Slot was like, what the hell are you doing shooting from there? Oh, that's why. You know, and then he'll just also do stuff that'll just completely frustrate you. Now, for me, I think, and again, this is where the price tag does come into it, unfortunately, I would have liked more end products for the price we paid. But like you say, that's not his fault. But I would take him over Haaland any day, because I think what Sunday proved is that unless you are presenting it on a silver platter for Erling Braut Haaland, he's absolutely fucking useless.
Yeah. Well, I mean, with Núñez, you'll see him run the length of the pitch to get back and defend.
He was our best defender in the last 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's what I want to see. I mean, I also want to see him bag, you know, more goals. Obviously, being a striker.
Yeah. And frankly, mate, if I want him to do something outside of scoring goals, I want him to be contributing the way he is. So I've got no problems with him where that's concerned. As I said, I'd just love to have him turn into the absolute goal machine that we thought we were signing in the first place.
Who's your favourite player?
At the moment?
Yeah.
Oh, it's hard, isn't it? Because there's just so many good ones. I'll be honest with you. I am going to play a little bit of I told you so here, because from the very second he walked through the door, and I was saying this to another one of my great friends, Patrice Baumel, amazing DJ, wonderful, wonderful music producer, and also a very keen Bayern Munich fan. I said when we bought Gravenberch, I said, we've got ourselves, like, I described him as Paul Pogba, but arsed. And Patrice was like, nah, he's not a player. Don't see a player in him. Couldn't get in the team at Bayern. Like, sorry, mate, I don't think he's got the mustard. And in his first season, he obviously struggled a little bit because he was being played as a 10. And me and Patrice actually went to Liverpool versus United at Anfield last December, which was obviously a disgustingly frustrating game. But until Gravenberch got injured in that game, for me, he was the best player on the pitch. And he was starting to show signs of being a very complete midfielder, but possibly being played out of position, which I think was a bit of a symptom of late-stage Klopp where you could see he could probably, in hindsight, have taken us as far as he could have done, because there were certain players that we see now who were getting played out of position, and Gravenberch was one of them. So for me, like, him being, and it's not even him being reinvented as a six, because I don't even think that that's what's going on. I think the midfield rotation between him and any three of Jones, Szoboszlai and McAllister, like, they're all performing that function, but he's taking it on his back to be like the main, like, you know, the main sort of gatekeeper of that position, if you know what I mean. And honest to God, it's been so lovely to see him move so far forward to the point where, you know, he's legitimately got a chance of saying, like, he is going to be like the player of the year, not just for us, but I mean overall in the league. I actually think he's been overall the best player in the Premier League this season, you know, because I love midfielders. Like, I'm a stickler for, like, midfielders. Like, my favourite players of all time are like your Zidans, your Alonsos, your Pirlos, that type of thing. So I'm a sucker for a real complete midfielder. So to watch Gravenberch turn into, slightly unsure of himself, Paul Pogba, into the bastard love child of Patrick Vieira and, like, Ruud Gullit, it's like so satisfying to see. So he's probably my favourite player at the moment.
Yeah, I'd say the same. I just love how he's matured into that role. And I think, as you say with Klopp, I just think, you know, the last 6 months of Klopp, it was a bit all over the place. And sometimes, you know, a manager change, just like with Curtis, can help them. And I think with Ryan, it's helped him as well. I mean, especially with having a manager that's Dutch as well. But it's just suiting the team so much more. I mean, Curtis is able to play more of a free role. I think the season before, you know, he was in and out of the team and he'd hold on to the ball way too long. And Ryan just cuts through everyone like butter. Like, he's got that Cruyff turn, like, on dial. Like, he's absolutely brilliant. I mean, I would love to see him score a few goals, but, you know, if the team's winning, who cares? And having a Van Dijk back to his best as well, can only be, you know, a massive positive for us. And with the change of Klopp and Slot, you know, there was no way you could come at me in the summer and go, you're going to go 13 games, like, top of the league in the league and in the Champions League. I would have gone, go fuck off, you know, mental. You've got mental health problems. No way could, I mean, I would be sat here talking to you going, you know, we're top of both leagues. And that's a credit to Slot. That's a credit to the backroom staff. That's a credit to, you know, every single player that puts on that red shirt has done the job. It doesn't matter who comes in, but a player that's out injured, they've put that shirt on and they've given blood, sweat and tears. And I can't commend this team more than, you know, like you say, Cenk goes out, you just like, we all know Connor's been good anyway. Cenk's been injured quite a few times last season, but, you know, that tackle against Mbappe, it was a goal. That's what it was. It was a goal. And it's a shame he got injured, and it's a shame he got injured as well. But Gomez comes in, and it's like nothing's ever changed. Kwanzaa's at right back, for God's sake.
Oh, that was the one that got me on Sunday, that, you know, where, you know, Doku was causing us not like massive problems, but everything that was good about them in the second half was coming through him when he came on. And just, you know, because we didn't really see Kwanzaa after the first half against Ipswich on the opening day. And Slot hooked him and everyone thought it was really harsh and, you know, it really set the tone and everything else. And just for Slot to just sort of casually, very nonchalantly go, on you go, kid, in a position you've never played before, just shut him up, will you? And then within like 2 minutes of him coming on, it's like City just disappeared. Wild.
I wish they would disappear.
I think they might do. I mean, you see what he said this morning about Mo knowing more about the 115 charges. Funny, mate. I love him. I love Slot so much because he's so different to Klopp and he's so his own man. But his sense of humour is so dry and so Dutch. Like, I don't know whether you saw the actual video of him saying that this morning, but, mate, the press room was in stunned silence, and then he had to actually explain it to everyone. I am joking, like, because he's just so flat and deadpan with his delivery. Like, there was a cracking one about, they were talking about Gravenberch again, and there was this fella where he was going, I think it was after the Real Madrid game, it was, is he going to become the new Tony Cruz? And he went, no, because he's not German, he's Dutch.
Like jokes like that's what I love. You see more of his personality coming out every single presser. Is he as funny as Klopp? No. Is he as charismatic as Klopp? No. He's Slot, and we'll see. Like, but we're in a tough month. Obviously, compared to everyone else, we haven't played anyone.
Apparently.
Well, you can't play anyone above you, can you?
Well, that's it, yeah. Yeah. Mate, I love all that because it made me laugh that because I remember, like, because I'm a subscriber to The Athletic, and The Athletic went from, well, it's going to be very, very tough for Arne Slot and taking over from Klopp and the legacy and putting that, that massive thing on his shoulders. And then literally about 3 weeks ago, I get an email saying, well, of course, Slot's got, first season advantage at Liverpool. And it's like, oh, fuck off. Do me a favour.
Well, it's they're on the bandwagon at the moment. That's the thing, the media, it's Liverpool's to lose and all this shite. I'm so sick. It's like 13 games in, come on. Like, like we were talking on the group chat. It's like, calm down, people. Like, there's a lot of football to still get played. Let's get through December. Let's get through January. Let's get through blah, blah, blah. But ask me again in like April, like where we're at. That's where the business end. But I think if we can get through December, like, obviously we got Jota coming back. It looks like Ali won't be back until back end of December. That's what Slot was saying. Chiesa's back. I mean, that's a plus, but my issue is that back line. You've got Tsimikas out for the next couple of weeks. You've got Ibu and Connor out till at least January. So Robbo can't play 90 minutes every single match. So I'm thinking maybe Gomez starts at centre-back and then they're going to move Gomez over to left-back to give Robbo some, much-needed rest. And then Kwanzaa's probably going to do right-back. Well, no, Kwanzaa will go into centre-back. So it's a toughie. I'm glad I'm not Slot because that's a massive headache to have.
Yeah, well, one injury to a centre-back away from being a full-blown injury crisis there, which makes it even more funny that it's like, oh, well, they've only played injury-strewn teams, like, Real Madrid have got a lot of injuries and City have had a lot of injuries and Rodri's out, and it's like, best goalkeeper in the world's currently out. Trent's just been injured. Probably one of the other best centre-backs in the league, Canate, is also out. You can't have it again. Like, this is my thing. You can't have it both ways. Like, you can't have your cake and eat it, But like I said about the media before, just going back to that for a second, these patterns as much as anyone because you've seen it and you've seen a lot like I have over the years. And all of this is part of the narrative in inverted commas. And what the narrative now is can we set Liverpool up for a fall? Because they're so far ahead. And if we appoint them champions now after 13 games, then we can hopefully start to put a bit of pressure on these lads. And then obviously, because it's all about the product, right? The Premier League, the best league in the world. I have this theory because my other sort of great passion outside of music and football is, believe it or not, professional wrestling. And I really love the art form of professional wrestling, but it's about how you manufacture drama. And this is what the media does with all of this. Like, you know, can we create a narrative where we set someone up for a fall? And, you know, I've got opinions about how that bleeds down into things like refereeing, you know, without going into the whole David Coote thing, which has confirmed all of my suspicions about just how corrupt the refereeing is in this country or in England. So it's the WWE-ification of football, where it's like, how can we manufacture this and change the goalposts in order to create maximum soap opera level drama? So we can obviously, you know, create more anger, we can create more division. And when that happens, people click more and they watch more, you know. So if anyone's listening to this who's a Liverpool fan, I'm sure there's going to be one or two. All we've got to do is just ignore the noise. And one thing that, you know, our squad and also Slot as well is showing is that very handily adept at completely ignoring it all. So, you know, outside of that, it's completely outside of our control. So you've just got to make sure you manage your diet of media appropriately to cause yourself minimal stress.
Well, all they're doing is dangling the carrot.
Yeah.
Just leave that carrot alone. That's the thing. First, they want to get in the supporters' heads. And if you go to a game and you've got that in your head, that's going to go onto the pitch. That's going to get in the players, and that's what they want. I mean, you know, I turn all that media bullshit off. Like, you know, I love Wrighty, I really do. I think he's great, but you know, he's also saying it's Liverpool's to lose, and I'm like, well, you're an Arsenal man, aren't you? So of course you're saying that. But it sells newspapers, it sells clicks, it sells likes, it gets people talking. That's what they want.
Yeah, and it's funny. Yeah, go on.
No, go on.
I was gonna say, like, because it's funny you brought Arsenal, because obviously we were just talking about them before we hit record, and like some things have just sort of slid into my head. Is that like a lot of the Arsenal legends, like Ian Wright and especially Thierry Henry, what you'll notice is they're all effusively positive towards Liverpool, right? And I've got this theory that not only are a lot of the legendary Arsenal fans actually secret Liverpool fans, I actually think a lot of Arsenal fans are secret Liverpool fans as well. And they actually consider themselves to be the Liverpool of London, if you know what I mean. And it's like, yeah, all right, whatever. Imagine being us, carry on with that. Do you know what I mean? But I think the media, they want it to be 2013 and 2014 all over again, because that's the season we did collapse with Rodgers, you know. And I remember getting a lot of stick off other Liverpool fans because, like you, I'm old school. I don't know, Ronnie Moran type, really. Like, you don't celebrate until you've got the trophy in your hands, and then you'd enjoy it for a few hours. You put your medals in a box, the trophy goes in the cabinet. Guess what, lads? You've done fuck all. Get back here in 6 weeks, enjoy yourself, don't get fat. You know, back to the drawing board, what's next? And I just remember that season, and I hope that it doesn't happen this season where a lot of fans I saw were getting the bunting out 6 weeks before the season was over. And that affected the team, I think, and I think it actually did contribute to the collapse alongside the media narrative, because that was a team that really shouldn't have been in the position it was in, because it was unlikely that we were so far ahead. I mean, we were like 5 points ahead with like 3 or 4 to play, and then the Chelsea thing happened, and then the Crystal Palace result, and that's when the expectations of the fans and the media and everything else just piled on top, and then you see what happened. Do you know what I mean? So we've got to guard against that. Like you were saying about what does the vibe like for this season, it does remind me of 1920 when we won the league, where we just disappeared up the road, and hopefully that's going to continue. But I think this season's really important in the context of that season, because of the fact that we never got to celebrate that league with the proper parade, with fans in the stadium, and, you know, to actually like fully fully live that moment. So I think if there's any sort of pressure or expectation that people are going to feel, it's the fact that if it does happen, and hopefully it will, once that comes round and it's like, mathematically done and we can celebrate and everything else, I actually think it'll be very cathartic for a lot of people because of the fact that we never got to properly celebrate the last league that we won 4 years ago.
Yeah, I actually was going home that year because I knew. I mean, we were 25 put here in March. Yeah. Already got me plane ticket and everything. And then obviously COVID happens and I was like, I was just so bummed. It would have just been magical. But yeah, I mean, we'll see where we're at. Again, like get through this. I go month to month. Get through December. It's challenging. And I can't wait to face Accrington Stanley in the FA Cup. That's, I mean, again, where you remember that advert. So
that's it, yeah.
It's funny. I put it up yesterday and there's quite a few people going, hey, well, I don't get it. Like, well, how old are you? Oh, I'm 25. I'm like, of course you don't get it. Yeah.
You haven't lived.
I'll explain it. Yeah. I'll use some crayon drawing as well for you if you want. But yeah, I'm just open to anything. I'm glad where we are, where we're at. And, I still think we're not out of second gear. That's the thing. This team better.
Yeah, absolutely. There's another level that it can go to for sure. It's been an adjustment to watch them this season, though, because I think we've been so used to the hell for leather, heavy metal football that it did take a little bit of time for me to get used to this slightly more considered approach. Because I think over the last 9 years, we got used to living on the edge of our nerves a little bit because of the way that we played, and it was incredibly exciting, but also we'd always give you the chance because of the high line. Excuse me. And it was really refreshing. Like, I'll be honest with you, I said this to Patrice last night at dinner. Do you know what my favourite 15 minutes of the season have been so far? The last 15 minutes against Man United at Old Trafford. You know why? Because fuck all happened. We just did little rondos round them, took the piss a little bit. We clearly decided that they'd had enough and that'll do. And we just managed the game. That was a big turning point for me, because that shows a consistency and I don't know what would be the word, like very considered approach, which, is a reflection of the coach, really, in terms of how we manage games. And if you think about our biggest problems in the Klopp era, is that it was always touch and go in April and May, wasn't it? Because it was like we were just knackered. We just had nothing left in the tank and we just run out of steam half the time. So it was almost about staggering over the line at the end of the marathon rather than doing what City have done for years, which is, and this is why I don't count me chickens, is because a lot of the time that lot don't get started until January. And if they're still within touching distance in January, we're going to be in for a fight, no matter how far ahead we are. So, we'd always gas out at the wrong moment. And even watching that and seeing how much more effortlessly we win games, we're winning games in a much better way by expending much less physical and also nervous and emotional energy to get over the line. That's going to compound over a season, and that's going to start showing in May when we're still playing the way we are, or still playing close to that level. It's it was just interesting, even seeing Trent almost spit his dummy out a little bit earlier in the season because Slot was pulling him after 65, 70 minutes. And Slot was clearly thinking about back end of April, May, we're going to have to start doing this now by managing the minutes a little bit better and making sure everybody's in still good nick by the time we get to that part of the season when the trophies are handed out.
Yeah, no, spot on with that. I agree with you wholeheartedly. I just think Slot understands this isn't, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. And, you can see how different it is. Yeah, I mean, again, we've already been talking for over an hour and we haven't touched music yet. Which is brilliant because again, we're talking about the team that we love. So what I'm going to ask is, will you come back and do a part 2 for the music?
100%. We'll do a part 2, which is just about music only, and we'll hold each other to that one.
Well, we'll touch on Liverpool. We'll do I better not say that because then we'll do another hour.
You're opening the floodgates, mate. That's all you're doing. So you're better off just saying, no, we won't go there and we'll just talk about music for an hour.
Oh, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate. It really has.
Likewise, mate. Likewise. It's been great connecting with you in recent weeks, since our mutual friends put us in certain WhatsApp groups and, getting to know you that way. And obviously it's a good way of spending like a quality hour, getting to know someone and, talking about one of our favourite things in life, mate. So it's been an absolute pleasure and I can't wait to do it again, but again with the music touch.
Yeah, 100% just the music. I'm going to say this though, if you're into like electronic music, please go check out Paul's tracks on Beatport, on Spotify. Fantastic producer, and yeah, we'll talk more on part 2. But until next time, please like, subscribe, put your notifications on, and we'll see you next time.